I guess just my first question is, can you tell me just how you first heard about LaughFest? I mean, did they call you up and say, "Hey, come on, we would like you to be a part of this," or was it something that kind of just was out there of, they're looking for comedians to come on out, and you went, "I want to be a part of that."
I didn't know what it was. I did not know what LaughFest was until I got the phone call. Yeah, that's not fair. Let me redo that for you.
That's okay.
That's a shit answer.
You know how it is. It's not live, so if you need to...
We ready? I had heard of LaughFest, but I did not realize how big of an event it was. I thought it was just like one or two shows and using local guys and maybe the occasional out-of-town guy. And then when I got booked to be on it this year, I went to the website and was amazed at how extravagant it was. How many days it was, how many shows there are, how many great acts are coming in. So maybe it's grown since I first heard about it, but I think it's great.
And have you been able to see any other shows?
No, sir. Got in here about an hour ago. My plane was delayed, so I got here about an hour before my show, did my show,
wow.
And now I'm talking to you.
What have you talked to other comedians just at all about this festival and kind of the reputation that it's getting in the comedy world?
You know what? Again, the only people I've talked to are people that are up here at the festival. Everybody's been raving about how great the crowds have been, how great the shows have been. It's nothing but a positive atmosphere. Everybody's enjoying celebrating comedy, and that's what it's all about.
I imagine because of that, because again, it's a celebration of comedy. It's easier for you to interact with the crowds than it would be at a nightclub.
You know what? Yes and no. Obviously it's a positive energy here, and people are into it. But the nightclub, you're dealing with different elements, and that's its own animal, and dealing with the crowds and talking to those folks. So I don't know if it's any different. I think you're kind of treading the same water a little bit.
And a lot of your style is interacting with
yes.
the audience.
Uh-huh.
And so how much of that is prepared or stuff that you've worked on before?
When I do these Bob and Tom style shows where it's a little tighter, my show is also a little tighter. It's a little more of the written word. When I do my actual, headlining hour plus set, I try to improvise 90% of it. Mm-hmm. I try to either work off something that happens in the crowd, or work with an audience member or two and get to know their names and that sort of thing, or just stream of consciousness and just spin the funny out of whatever I stumble across. And that's what I found works for me. And we all have our different styles, and that's my nonsense.
Wow, that's really...
Yeah, I can't write a joke. If I could write a joke, I would do that. But instead, I just spin this way on stage.
You like your style, right? Where we're interacting with the audience.
Do I like that style?
Yeah.
Yes, I love it.
What attracts you to that style, or why does it make it natural and for you more enjoyable?
Well, again, for me, I'm not a great joke writer. I say that jokingly, but I'm really not. But I am a really good improviser in the world of stand-up comedy. I don't know if I'm a good improviser if I was to do sketches or that sort of thing, but as far like when I get on the stand-up stage, my mind opens up and I can improvise pretty much about anything. And I don't know, that appeals to me because it's new and fresh for me every night, and I don't get bored with the same act like I hear a lot of guys do. So I still kind of enjoy it.
And obviously, you do the warm-up act at Conan's late night show,
mm-hmm.
and is that style? I mean, do you do the exact same thing?
That's
there
it.
Where you're just interacting with the audience and that's how you get them warm up.
I have the greatest gig in the world working for Conan. When I got hired on day one at the Tonight Show, I did not want to be a warm-up comic. I had no interest in doing that, and they said it's not that. You go out and you do. At the time, it was 8 to 10, and now we're up to 15 to 17 minutes of comedy. None of the throwing T-shirts, none of the throwing candy bars, no sing-alongs. It's me doing what I do, and it's asking people where they're from, where they're, who's in visiting, that sort of thing. It's 100% improvised every night.
Wow.
Yeah, it's the greatest.
And obviously, one of the big pushes of this festival is that, when fighting a horrible illness like cancer, you need a laugh.
Right.
You need times just to laugh, just to make you feel good, to let you be in the moment, to forget what's going on. Have there been times in your life where people have come up to you after a show, or maybe even during Conan takes, where they just said, "Thank you. I needed that laugh.
You know what? I get that mostly from my podcast. I get a lot of emails from people saying that my podcast has helped them get through a tough time in their life, or get them through a rough breakup, or somebody suffering from an illness, and listening to my podcast at the hospital or driving back and forth from the hospital has gotten them through it. And honest to God, there's nothing more rewarding than that, than getting those emails from people saying that you've changed their life or you've helped their life.
Let's talk a bit about the podcast.
Sure.
Where did the drive for it come from? Where did you decide, this is what, I want to start going down this road. I want to start going on this journey.
I didn't know anything about a podcast. I knew a little bit because of Ricky Gervais. He had a podcast, and then the gentleman who is now my co-host came to me and said, "Hey, what do you think about doing a podcast?" And I've been a guy in my career, historically, I'm the last guy to do anything. I was the last guy on Facebook. I was the last guy on MySpace. I still don't have a Twitter account. I was always the last guy. So when he said, let's do a podcast, I was like, I don't know what that is, but this is the one time I'll be first. And if it goes nowhere, it goes nowhere. If it succeeds, then great. And it succeeded. Yeah. I came out with this professional sounding show doing good content, and people responded to it. And we've been doing it almost, I think we're going on 6 years now. Yeah. I think I was one of the first professional comedians on the West Coast to be doing one.
And unlike a lot of other podcasts, which are just downloaded for free, you actually charge.
I do charge.
But that's now is that now an added revenue stream for you that you can add to your career?
It's stand up. Yes, without giving away too much, it could probably be a living for somebody. It's really? Yes, my hobby has been very, very, very good to me. To quote an old SNL sketch. Wow. Yeah, I'm the luckiest man alive.
Is there an episode for you that was just like a zenith? Like you're like, oh, that's it. It can't get any better.
You know what? There's so many. They're all my babies. Yeah. But the one that I always point to is the first episode that Ty Burrell from Modern Family was on. Was a great episode. I had never met Ty until he walked in that day, and he and I just hit it off. And my show isn't really an interview as much as it is just guys hanging out talking. Yeah. And Ty fit in, and it really gelled. But there's great ones. My wife, Danielle Koenig, is on some of the best episodes. A guy named Pat Francis that nobody's ever heard of are great episodes. John Hamm has been on a handful of times, and he's always great. Conan himself has come on. But it's almost the ones with the people that nobody's ever heard of are always the ones that people seem to want to talk about. So, I'd like to think that maybe I have a little something to do with that. I don't know. But I don't know if there's a zenith as much as I think they're all good. There's some clunkers, which I won't go into because that will hurt people's feelings. But I don't know if there's one is better than the other.
Yeah. I got to interview Ty by a satellite once.
Yeah.
Oh my God, nicest guy.
It's unbelievable. I think a lot of it has to do with getting success in your 40s. You've lived a life, and especially being an actor and being in show business, of pushing the rock and getting told no more than you're ever told yes in show business. You audition for 100 things to get one job, and so to get punched down your 20s and 30s to finally get that success at 40, I think you appreciate it.
I think that's also the appealing with John Hamm is
no question.
One of the nice. I hear he's not only not one of the nicest guys in the comedy world, interacting with you guys. He's also really funny. I mean,
yeah.
And does that, as a comic, does that surprise you to see someone have that type of range? That can be
no, because look at Robin Williams. Robin Williams is, I almost think he's a better dramatic actor than he is a comedian. In The Awakenings or Good Will Hunting, so you can see that range. John, John's a great comedic actor. John Hamm is almost like Alec Baldwin in the sense that he's too good looking to be a clown. And so, he went into drama first, as did Alec, and then eventually figured out, hey, I'm a great comedic actor. And I think eventually John will end up, once Mad Men's over, he'll end up doing more comedies than dramas. Yeah. That's just a guess. I don't know anything.
I'm going to be, I have a couple of serious questions here.
Go.
Because you have a history here in Grand Rapids in your life. You talk about how you did a show.
Yes.
And you weren't too pleased, and you went back to the bar, and you drank heavily.
It was I want to say it was the opposite. I think it was a great show.
Oh, okay.
And I don't know. Maybe it was a bad show. I don't remember. It was in December of '98, and I was working at a place called the Comedy Den, and I got hammered after the show, and yeah, drove down. Is it 28th Street? Does that sound right?
Yeah.
Drove down 28th to back to my hotel room, which is always a good idea. Always good to drink and drive. And got back to my hotel room and basically passed out while I was standing at the sink, and drilled the faucet into my forehead and passed out in my own blood for a few hours, and then came to and had to go to the emergency room. And so yeah, I have some history here in Grand Rapids.
And when you come back here to perform a show, is that something that crosses your mind?
You know what?
Or it's been so long. I mean, it's been over a decade that it's just.
That's just part of my life. But there was a time I was telling that story on stage, much more comedically than I told it to you just now. But it's just another thing that happened in life. You know what I mean? It's it's a crazy story that just happened to happen here. Happened to happen here. It's a lot of happens. But I've worked Grand Rapids probably half a dozen times since that happened, and it was always going to come back. I've always enjoyed Grand Rapids. I worked here probably twice a year for the first 10 years of my career.
Wow,
yeah,
that's cool. With comedians, you're going to get. I mean, it's like any other group. You're going to have a wide variety of ranges of people who are funny, and they're just as funny as they are on stage as they are off stage, and just as delightful on stage as off. Or people who are, really joyful on stage, but once they get off, they can get quite dark and they're almost private, internally private.
Mm-hmm.
What is it about comedy that brings that out and helps? Because so many comedians talk about how if it wasn't for my stand-up, I probably would have gone nuts. What is that element?
I don't know. I'm not smart enough to understand it.
Does it help? Has it helped you in any way?
Oh my God!
Or working on your act has.
It's helped me from the day that I was born. Probably. I mean, I'm not the tallest guy in the world. I'm only 5'4", and so I spent my entire childhood getting mocked and made fun of and bullied, and I was able to use humor to either diffuse getting beat up or to laugh off things that were hurtful. So then to go into comedy, I mean, a lot of people say, comedy is just another art form that people choose to go into. I believe that most comics go into this because something's nuts up here, and that to think comedically and to think along, to see things differently than normal people do. But for me, it certainly was a way to deal with life, and then to be able to bring it to a stage and have the limited and success that I've had, which I'm very happy with, has been amazing. To be able to be the jackass that I was in 8th grade, now I get to do it out there and make people laugh. Was that a good answer? Was that just a rambling?
No.
I'll beat myself up over that for 6 months.
Not at all. Here, tell you what. We'll talk about something you can beat yourself up over.
Yes.
Do you miss doing Funny Money?
National Lampoon's Funny Money, the games for big laughs, get you big bucks, and then get you canceled. That was a flawed show in that you're of course speaking of the game show on GSN back in 2003 and 2004. It was flawed in that it was not enough game for the game show fan, and comedy fans didn't know we existed. Yeah. So we had no ratings. Nobody knew we were around. Pardon?
I just wondered.
No.
Hello.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
This will be fine.
Oh.
This will be fine. This is good. I thought they had a big buffet too.
That may be the funniest thing that's happened this whole.
Like, not even, no attention at all to the fact that you've got a camera set up and recording. Okay, we're going to have a room.
But we were talking.
I will give you here's your edit point. But yes, I miss it because I love hosting game shows.
Yeah.
I thought that was a fun show.
And I'm so jealous because I hear you talk about all the fun you did, the match game style that you did out in LA.
Yeah.
God, I would have loved to have been there once.
Because
that show is just naturally built to be fun.
Mm-hmm.
And then to see, so many comedians, being able to work around that style, and then you to host, and you are such a quick wit.
Thank you.
that you would have probably been, I can only imagine the interaction.
It was amazing. It was, we did it at the UCB Theater in LA with the cream of the crop in comedy. Patton Oswalt, Paul F. Tompkins, Scott Aukerman. We would have our celebrity, John Hamm would be on it, or Andy Richter would be on, Matthew Perry, Janeane Garofalo. So, like, whenever somebody like Matthew Perry would come and see it, immediately after the show, he would find one of us and go, I got to do this. I got to be on the panel. And it was that kind of fun. I mean, it was, like anything else, it had to end at some point for legal reasons. But doing Match Game it was a ball. It was a ball.
Who makes you laugh today? Either stand-up wise or just in general?
Who makes me laugh today? You mean modern day peers, current?
No, just any.
Well, in general, the classics still make me laugh. Johnny Carson and Groucho Marx and Don Rickles. Modern day, I don't know, obviously the go-tos, Louis C.K. and Paul F. Tompkins and Patton Oswalt again. These are the guys that, Andy Kindler. The kid on the show tonight, Tommy Johnigan, I think is terrific. He makes me laugh. I'm a pretty easy laugh, believe it or not. I like to laugh. A lot of comics don't. It almost goes back to your thing about, how there's that dark side to us. A lot of comics have that wall where they, it's almost a cliche now where a lot of comics like to go, oh, that's a good joke, instead of laughing. I love to laugh. If I'm around people that can make me laugh, it's the greatest day of my life.
Have you had any time where you've seen someone perform or they've seen you perform and you go up to them and say, man, you're a real big hero of mine, I've always loved you, and they've just returned the favor and saying like, oh, Jimmy Pardo, every time I see you, you make me laugh. It's great to see you.
Some of the young kids that perform, when I see them and I'll say, hey, that was a great set, they might say, that was, that's an honor considering that, I grew up watching you, or, your style is something I wish I could do. But there's nobody really, Louis C.K. once said in an interview that I was one of the 3 people that made him laugh the hardest. And that was an amazing compliment. It was me and J.B. Smoove and another guy. He said those are the 3 that, make me laugh like nobody's business. And,
wow.
When I read that in print, it was, that's high praise. But other than that, I haven't had a chance to meet my heroes and have them know who I am. So, they've all gone on to be millionaires and don't know that I exist.
Now, but heroes, you are a huge fan of the band Chicago.
I am.
And you've been able to meet some of them, right?
I've met every member with the exception of Terry Kath, who of course passed away in 1978. But I met them all. Most recently James Pankow, the trombone player, who he and I have I don't want to say bonded, but we seem to know each other at this point and able to joke with him. I met Peter Cetera on the street once, and was able to tell him I was a huge fan. Now that's the time where it did turn around, and I said, I don't want to bother you. I'm not a guy that bothers people, which is what everybody says when they're about to bother a celebrity. And I said, I just have to tell you that honest to God, my heart's pounding. It's a pleasure to meet you. And he was like, and you can see in his eyes that he's bothered by me. And he said, well, that's very nice. What's your name? And I said, for whatever reason, I gave him my first and last name. I said, my name is Jimmy Pardo. And he goes, Jimmy, I've seen you on Comedy Central. You're hysterical. And I was like, my hero knows who I am. And so that was a pretty cool day. That was a neat day. And so that was neat.
Just got a few more questions here before we go.
Sure.
Do you have, you go out on tour for stand-up, you're running the podcast. Is there a normal schedule for you week to week, or just it's constantly fluctuating?
It fluctuates. I do Conan every day. Monday through Thursday, we do Conan. So 4 days a week. And then we record the podcast on Mondays. And then occasionally we'll go on the road the Friday, Saturday, or on an off week from Conan. So I don't, that's as stable as I've ever been in my career, the way that's happening right now. Whereas in the old days, I didn't know if I was going to Ohio or, Michigan or St. Louis or, I didn't know what I was doing. But now it's there's a little package and it seems to work out.
And from what you're seeing in the world of stand-up comedy, what do you see coming up? What do you see as the future in the business and the evolution of stand-up comedy?
Boy, that's a great question. What do I see in the evolution of stand-up comedy? I'd like to see it go back to being a little more personal. I think comedy these days, everybody's taking that left turn approach to comedy. I think there's less risks being taken, even though the material may be considered edgier. Everything's blah 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 and then bah. But the baba is language and edginess and pushing the envelope. But it's nothing personal, so it's just a written word. And if that doesn't work, you can hide behind it. I'd like to see comedy come back around where it's a little more personal and people talking about their lives and the way that Richard Lewis did, who was one of my heroes, and talking about how he's crazy and find the jokes in that way. Cool. That was a no answer.
That was
a circle around. That was a misfit.
And then as far as the podcast, you're just going to keep doing that until...
I will keep doing the podcast as long as people want to hear the podcast. Or until I'm shut down for legal reasons, which could happen someday. But no, I love doing the podcast. I love the fact that people love the podcast. It's changed my career. People come out to see me now that, never knew I existed until, the podcast.
Well, and then in the comedy world, there's the argument about what you should be called. I don't care that, Adam Curry may have done the first podcast. I still think you are the Podfather.
Well, you're very kind to say that I am the Podfather. I don't know if that's accurate, but I will take it, and I will run with it and make a plaque.
We can have a vote on the internet, and I'm gonna bet you're gonna win 10-1.
I don't think I will, but I appreciate you saying that.
No, have faith, Jimmy.
I don't think I will.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure.